Hi, everyone. Welcome to Figuring Out Fabric, where I ask dumb questions and you get smart answers. And I have one of my favorite people on, Heidi Hastings. She's been doing this for over a decade. She's an MVP. She's a Microsoft certified trainer, and she's been big involved in the community. I think the first time I met her, like more formally, was I was one of the program organizers for Past Summit. She got brought on for like a year before it collapsed because of COVID. Now, I don't think there's any correlation, but it was nice to get to know her more and just to see how enthusiastic she was. So I'm excited to have you on the show, Heidi.
Same. You forgot to mention I'm like a TikTok video gate crasher.
Oh, that's right. Back when I was trying to make TikTok work, we did a video at the Microsoft sign on the campus because everyone would take a picture and stuff, and so her and Tracy Baggiano and crashed my selfie video as a little satire. So that was fun.
That spot on campus has got to have like the most photos taken of one
Oh,
single location.
100%. Absolutely.
I laugh. I go, they're taking the photo at the wrong spot because if you walk like 5 meters to the right, there's the Xbox research sign because that's where Xbox research is the neighboring building. So I'm like, I took that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very cool. So I guess the first question is, how did you first start getting involved with fabric and all that kind of stuff?
Weird. Well, so for Fabric itself, being an MVP, we get to see things sort of ahead of time. So that's where I got started with Fabric. And then selfishly, at the time, I was working in a data analytics consultancy, of course, with Azure Data and Microsoft Data Technologies. We were technology agnostic, but I stuck with the Microsoft stuff. So you have things like Azure Databricks and you have Synapse, but we had a lot of consultants that know those. So I was like, right, if I get like learning Fabric early, then when that goes public, there's a good chance I'll get to work on fabric projects because I have the most experience over other people. So
Right.
that's where I sort of got into it, was like, well, I haven't really spent much time with Synapse. Databricks, not so much because I was doing a lot of SQL Server work, a lot of Power BI work, a lot of administration stuff with the tenants. So I just went, let me learn Fabric from the get-go and try and edge my way in to be like consultant number one when it comes up.
Yeah,
When
I was
I got started with it.
I was in on that preview as well, and I tried, but it took it. I had a lot of false starts with like getting into fabric, I think. So I guess was there any? I'm trying to think of this. Was there any kind of other driving factor, or you're like, well, Microsoft is clearly pushing this. This is clearly going to be a thing, and so like we'll see if it turns into something. And you're just hopping on the train as it's going by. Um,
Pretty much. That
yeah.
that was me. I'm like, all right, this is the latest thing. It's got all the things in it. So it's got the data science in, it's got the data engineering in, it's got some extra cool features that the other products don't have. So I'm like, okay, there's a good chance that this will probably stick around longer than like Silverlight did back when I was doing software development.
Oh,
So I might
sure. Yeah.
let's just go for, and Power BI was not going away. And so the fact that they went, hey, Fabric's on top of Power BI, but that in itself caused so much drama. Like, I hilariously attended a user group. I think it was like an admin of a user group meeting, and someone said to me they had an attendee say they can't use Power BI because it's in preview. And I was like, what now? And then I realized it was because we all knew that Power BI was GA and had been used for years at that point. But because Microsoft went and changed all the websites when you look up Power BI to Fabric, and Fabric was in preview, so a newbie to Power BI thought that Power BI was in preview because Fabric was in preview and now it's part of Fabric. And I was like, well, they have a point. And that's really
That's
bad.
funny. Well, you get the weirdest questions because like I answer way too many on Reddit. And people are like, "So is Power BI going away? Does that and all this stuff?" Um, yeah, I wrote a blog post a while back as a retort to some LinkedIn post because someone was saying, "Oh, they're killing Power BI with the distraction with Fabric. They should separate the two and then bring down the AI to a lower tier." And for me, like, if Power BI was not just like stapled on to Fabric, I would not be investing my time in it, especially because I have a decent memory. And I remember all the time SQL Server tried to become big data. and then 3 years later would disappear. Before Synapse, we had like the parallel data warehouse and APS, and then there was this weird tangent with big data clusters. Sorry, Ben Weissman, and just all these sorts of things. And so, yeah, I think for me and a lot of people, I wouldn't have come along for the ride if it wasn't for Power BI being attached. Now, admittedly, I did look into Fabric because I won't say who, because this is back when it was a preview, but someone on the CAT team was like, you really need to learn this. But yeah, unfortunately, I think you got better use out of the preview than I did, because I just walked away kind of very confused at the beginning.
Oh, and now it's hard because everyone is like, it's like new shiny. So as soon as someone hears about Fabric, and then, of course, Microsoft is going to sell it. It's their latest product. It's the product they're invested in. Of course, you want to get return on investment. So you've got Microsoft salespeople going, this is great, come on board, let's help you get on board. Then you've got us in the delivery, execution, implementation, working with customers who are hearing like it's all sunshine and unicorns. And then we have to come in and go, ugly baby. And then separately, you've got the people who they have team members who just go, we should move everything to Fabric. And then when you look at what they're doing, they have existing SQL Server estates with Power BI reporting that's just working for them. And I had a conversation with someone last week, and I'm like, hey, you don't have a compelling reason to go to Fabric. I'm not saying don't go to it or don't roadmap to it, but currently where you are and the problems you face and the roadmap you're looking to do as a business, it does not make sense to shift to Fabric just because you have a data engineer going, pick me, I want to do Fabric. That's not a good enough reason. And a lot of them are going into it going, hey, I follow, they read all the Microsoft docs, which you got to take with a grain of salt because they are how the features are built, but it's not necessarily exactly the experience you're going to have if you do something a little bit left of field. Because I've had ones where the doc says this, and I go to try it, and I go to use it, and I get a different experience. Now, that could be a bug, or it could be I'm just using it in a slightly different way. But then you have customers doing solution designs, and they're going to get the same experience. So you got to be really careful where if you're just going off the docs and the marketing, you're probably going to get burnt really quickly.
Yeah, no, I ran into that in a couple ways. It's funny. Just this week, I have accidentally ended up on my first Fabric project. So,
Just as
um,
Power BI turns 10.
I know, yeah, right. Well, that's the thing is like I've been. So we're gonna go on a tangent, but I know you're already fine with it. So for me, the we're going down a couple layers on the stack, and then we're working about. So for me, the timeline of, okay, I really need to learn Fabric was, all right, I was in the preview, didn't quite understand it. I tried blogging about me understanding it. So I had like a 4 blog series of like me fumbling around with Fabric and being like, here's what I learned, here's what I'm confused on. And then um like a year and a half ago, I was subcontracted to make training for this company. So week-long workshop. And the first day needed to be on Fabric. The rest was Power BI. I'm like, oh, I actually need to learn Fabric because in 6 months I'm going to be delivering it. Um, so that's kind of when I really started to get more serious about it. But then recently, I had a customer this week that had contracted me before for training and for Power BI, and they wanted to diversify originally. So they had, I think their data lake was in Snowflake, and that there's a tool called Edify, which is kind of like a Postgres software as a service data warehouse. But they have a new CIO who's like, let's get everything under the same umbrella. And they're like, hey, Eugene, can you talk about Fabric? I'm like, well, yeah. So we had a meeting. I'm like, here's the demo, here's the workspace. Yeah, you probably want to go with a Lakehouse for your bronze and your, warehouse for your silver, whatever. And I'm like, I'm not the best at ETL. And they're like, well, Eugene, you already have credentials in our system. We like you. And you say you're not good at ETL, but you seem to know a lot of stuff. So can you help us with this Fabric project? I'm like, sure. And so I've accidented my way into working with Fabric. So that's the bottom of the stack. Let's go back up the call stack. Um, I agree with you. There's a lot of stuff. It's like, this doesn't solve your problem. And one of the couple of fabric talks I've given, and it's on YouTube, I did, you could have invented Microsoft Fabric. And really, it's, you could have invented Delta Lake. But I try to come at it from, okay, I don't have big data. My customers, like, we're dealing with tens of gigabytes. We don't need a data lake. And so when does it make sense? And the where I kind of land is, for smaller customers, it makes sense when, all right, you've got your Power BI report, but they want to do like one simple integration. And really, it's like exporting data from Salesforce into like CSVs or something, and then getting that in it. You know what I'm talking about? So I wrote a whole blog post about like small business guidance for Fabric, of like, try this, ignore this. But you're right, like, they sell it as the hot new thing. And the docs make it sound like this is the way it's always been, ignoring the fact that we had a whole platform architecture called modern data warehousing, which is now pre-modern, post-modern. I don't even know where we're at. So yeah, you can really, really get yourself in trouble, because all the docs assume the golden path. Everything's happy, hunky dory. And the moment, I mean, they've done better, but first couple of years, the moment you fall off the golden path, it's just a nightmare. So, yeah.
And it's weird because, like, I have worked with people where if you come from the Azure PaaS world or any other analytics platform or data platform and you look at Fabric, you're of course going to compare them. It's the same way that people compare Power BI and Tableau, and they have their unconscious bias opinions, like one's easier than the other. It's like, yeah, the one that's easier is the one that you started on because you already took the hard journey to learn it. But with Fabric, people are comparing it, and Microsoft didn't do us any favors by having really similar names like Azure Data Factory, Fabric Data Factory. So people make assumptions that they're feature parity and they're the same and they act the same, work the same, source control the same, change release the same. And they really, really don't. And then you're left feeling, because you're doing that comparison, you're left feeling, oh, I wanted to do this, I can't, or I thought I could just lift this thing over and I can't, or I'm trying to do this. And you really have to evaluate it going, how much is an 80/20? And then on the flip side, you've got the absolute new, well, I say absolute newbies, maybe like 3/4 newbie to full on newbie. If you already did Power BI, you read the Power BI to Fabric like tutorial, and the very first step is create a lakehouse with no description. So you don't know why you're creating a lakehouse. If you're someone who's done Power BI visualization, report development, may or may not have done the data transformation, data cleansing aspect, and maybe may or may not have done modeling, you don't know the whole back end strategy that data engineers do. So you're just reading this thing going, the first thing it tells me to do is create a lakehouse. And then it becomes like, well, the doc told me to create a lakehouse, so everything's a lakehouse now. And potentially they could be doing like a lakehouse per report because they don't know any better. So it's like lakehouse, lakehouse, lakehouse. It's like it becomes hard because you've got that two streams, and unless you know the community around it, you also don't have that perspective to lean on. So you're trusting like a lot of the guidance and going, hey, yeah, I could spin up a trial, but some orgs lock down the trial as well. So it's
Yeah.
like, hey,
Yeah. No, I think it's challenging for a lot of folks. And I'm just so mixed on it, because I mean, certainly Power BI was like that in the beginning, where there was one book by Teal Lechev, and I read the book because it was the only book out there, and there were barely any blogs and all that kind of stuff. So some of that's going to come with time, but yeah, that's definitely part of the goal of the podcast. Is it's so disorienting. Microsoft has a two-sided battle, which we've learned from wars does not work out very well, where they're trying to get the feature parity to make the enterprise customers happy, but also trying to have like the on-ramps and the design patterns for more of the smaller businesses. And there's no way you can focus on both at the same time. And so I think there's a lot of consternation and frustration around Fabric right now, but I some is getting better. We're starting to get some of the quality life stuff that we need.
yeah, it's definitely like a drastically improving product, which is the great thing. Like so far, so good. Like the trajectory of improvements is quite high. The investment, you can see that there's a lot of investment in it. There's a lot of people talking about it from a Microsoft standpoint, so you know that there's a lot of investment there. On the flip side, I see a lot in how to get started with Fabric, how to onboard with Fabric, and I'm not yet seeing a lot around the governance and the monitoring and the auditing side. So that one I'm looking forward to as that starts to get more airtime, because it's very easy for people to go, hey, let me spin up a Lakehouse, put my data in, put a model on it, put a report on it. Yep, I'm all good, until something goes wrong. And then you're like, how do I troubleshoot it? Because all the tutorials are how I build it and not how I troubleshoot it and how I find the problems and fix them. The information's there. A lot of it's there, but you have to like troll through to find it.
Well, and part of the problem is that Microsoft, actually, I guess I don't know what you have in Australia for home improvement stores, but we have like Lowe's and Home Depot out here.
Mm.
Yeah. So they're trying to be like the home improvement store where you can just go get your own lumber, go get your own nails, and build whatever you want. And I appreciate the flexibility, but that does make it hard to provide those monitoring tools, those like governance kind of tools and all that kind of stuff, or provide guidance on that. Because when everyone has built their house differently, well, how do you do that? Yeah, I think it's gonna take some time, and I think it's gonna be hard for some of that information to percolate down, because the people who know how to handle that or can intuit how to handle that is because they have all this experience and they're just transferring it over. And so they're probably not talking about it because they just did it. They just, like they didn't, it's just what you just got to do. Like I feel like we need more people who are kind of in that middle ground where this is new to them, but they figured out how to implement this stuff and they're writing about it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, by then I'll be a fabric expert apparently, since I got my first job, first customer. Um, so I know one of the other things you wanted to talk about was kind of community inserts and stuff. I think a question is, if someone is new to all this, and they have to learn, what what would you recommend, kind of where they get plugged into all this, or what they focus on?
Well, the selfish plug would be go to the Fabric Careers Hub, because it's got things like study guides and learn morals and links to all that stuff. But it's also because I'm on that. And I love the fact that I get to be on the Fabric Careers Hub. But I would look at it differently. So for me to learn Fabric is very different, because I come at it from a background of software engineering and then hybridize knowing like data analytics with SQL Server and Azure Data, and then going into Fabric. So my learning path and what I would put people through who have my background would be different to someone else. But I think what I've seen be successful from just looking at the different community forums is, sure, sign up for, things like 30 days to learn it, the different challenges, whether it's 600 and 700 exam, even if you're not doing the exam. It's just to know which learn modules are targeted for that sort of role. So if you're doing an analytics engineer role, look at these learn modules. If you're doing, a data engineer role, look at these modules. But separately, don't have that as your only source. I would go look at the learn modules because they're there and Microsoft maintain them, which is a better chance of them being semi up to date. Then you've got the and play with the applied skills, because then you get hands-on practical testing your knowledge. Look at doing the certs if that's for you, but look at some of the community people like Will Needham. I think it's like Fabric Dojo. I've heard great feedback about his series where he takes you from like, 0 to something. People like Reza Rad taking you like, he has his 0 to hero type learning modules and training that he has, especially with the Radicate Academy. People like yourself doing the various different learning module styles, training styles is really good. And then when you want to do more advanced, once you've got your beginner and you actually understand holistically what the platform's capable of, and you start to get that beginner feel, then you switch into, okay, who's doing blogs and who in the community can I look to do for that advanced stuff, whether it be architecting solutions, troubleshooting solutions, best practice guidance, things like source control, CI/CD, because that falls you more in that advanced space, the administration and automation. And you start to find different people like Data Mozart, Kevin Chant, there's sorts of people. From the Microsoft side, of course, you've got the guy in a cube, if people aren't already familiar with that. Guy in a Cube with Adam and Patrick. You've got people like Chris Webb putting out a lot of content, and you start to get familiar with who's publishing what sort of content, and then you start following them. Like I always love seeing Rui Romano's stuff. He is a PM in the yeah. developer experience, but his practical application of using some of the features they roll out is just hands down, like, it's always really polished with Rue, which is great, but it's easily to go from no knowledge to read through what he puts out and go, "Oh, yep, that makes sense to me. It's logically explained." So it's kinda like fitting who your, like, people are. If you love doing visualization, then you would go for Workout Wednesday and follow people like Kerry Kolosko, Megan Longoria, I think is it Data Witches? Data Witches, Shannon Lindsay and
Yeah,
Chloe.
Stephanie Bruno and Shannon Lindsay.
Yeah, and Stephanie Bruno. Like, it kind of depends on where you're coming at it from as to what learning stream. Like, I love learning from doing, but I also love learning from watching and reading. So some people love books, and there's a bucket of books out there, but the risk with a book is it's going to get out of date really quickly with solutions like Fabric. So then you go, well, okay, let me read blogs, and that gives me the book-like feel. But if you like videos, go watch some of the live streams from like Cube and the videos. And even some of the products have their own channels now. So like Fabric Data Factory has a Data Factory channel. So it's like follow up. Or SQL Expresso. Is it SQL Expresso or Synapse Expresso?
Oh yeah. Although
Yeah.
I think the person who was running that is no longer at Microsoft. I think she's doing her own thing now. You're gonna make our show notes like a mile long. I just want to be clear.
AI for that.
No, yeah, I guess I could try and extract it that way.
But yeah, but it is that thing of like, it depends on what you want to learn or how you want to learn. Like, if you want to learn how to architect a solution, that's going to be very different to, I just need an overview of the platform or what it's capable of. What you won't see in most things is what can go wrong and
Yep.
what are the gotchas.
Yep. Simple stuff like data types not being a thing in data warehouse, indexes not being a thing in data warehouse, just little stuff that you maybe wouldn't think of, that the moment you try to implement something, you very quickly kind of run into it. So I think making the most of that trial time is important. I think another thing that was beyond the stuff you talked about that was helpful for me is realizing that a lot of this stuff sounds like it's the definitive, proper, best practice way to do it. And in fact, it's completely arbitrary. So the fact that we're on Parquet and Delta Lake, completely arbitrary. Microsoft had like a HDVD Betamax situation where they had to pick one of two competing formats, or three if you count Hootie, but who counts Hootie? And so, they could have gone Iceberg or they could have gone Parquet, and they went Parquet. Or I hate when people talk about medallion architecture, because it sounds like it makes sense. You listen, you're like, okay, cool. There's a way to do it. Everyone does it this way. And you find out, one, the naming convention is just the Databricks thing. And so there was a time where I was writing job interview questions on a contract for data engineers. And I thought, well, everybody knows about medallion architecture. And it's like, well, no, that's an Azure Databricks thing. But the other thing is you try to ask people, like, okay, so what exactly do you do in the silver layer? And it's like, well, whatever you want, whatever you need between bronze and gold. And there's no goalposts. It's wherever you want to put it. It's, somewhere between A and C. And so I think having a healthy skepticism or some curiosity of how did we actually get here, I think is important, because the understandably the docs are not going to say, oh, and by the way, this is all made up, and then we basically took whatever Databricks was doing. It's not a good look apparently for docs that say that. So I think those are the two other things that helped me a lot.
Well, I mean, we had that with Fabric Warehouse. Fabric Warehouse has been there a fair bit, but a lot of the guidance starts with Fabric Lakehouse. So I know for myself personally, I just thought, well, why do I go warehouse? And my initial assumption after reading a lot of the docs, not all of them, but a lot, I was like, okay, I only go warehouse if I'm heavy T-SQL shop and I want to use store procs and I want functions and I want row level, column level security at that data storage point. But then at FabCon Las Vegas, we were having a bit of discussion at one of the lunch tables, and they're like, well, why wouldn't you use warehouse for that? And I'm like, well, to be honest, and then I thought through and I went, well, because I read the medallion implementation on Fabric guidance and it's all Lakehouse, Lakehouse, Lakehouse. But that's just a guide. It's not the one way to do it. And when I rethought it, I went, hang on, I can pick either. And there's no definitive one versus the other unless you have really specific use cases like unstructured files. Of course, that's Lakehouse. So that makes sense for bronze in most scenarios because you can do both. But as soon as you go to put it in Delta Parquet, it's now either. You can go warehouse or Lakehouse. Like, it's not one or the other. And then what people forget is that is just the storage and the functionality you get with that storage. But when you shift that and go, well, now do I do multiple workspaces or single? And often my workspace split consideration is security based. It's not whether I'm doing lake houses or warehouses. I usually go, well, what's the security? And then it's things like, well, can factory talk to a lake house or warehouse in another workspace? If it can, then it doesn't matter. Or can a notebook talk to either? If it can, then that's not a decision point either. So you really are left with, you can do kind of any of them, and it's good and bad. It's like analysis paralysis because Microsoft goes, here, let me give you 9 ways to ingest data. And you're like, great, but how do I pick across the 9? And of course, they can't write like a PhD manual, and we don't want to read a PhD manual. So they tell us enough about each feature, but then it's like puzzle pieces. We have to pick how we put them together, and there's any number of ways to put them together. But that in itself is like, well, today I'll put it together this way. Tomorrow a new feature comes in, I'll do it this way. Like,
Yeah, I ran into the same problem when I was first trying to learn about Fabric. This was back when they had like the personas, and I'm like, well, all right, I'm doing a proof of concept. I clearly want a warehouse, and you find out that the ways to get data in is far more limited. And you look at the docs, and maybe it's changed in the past, year and a half. But you look at the docs back then, and like 80% of it is about Lakehouse. And again, I agree with you. There's a marketing and communications challenge because I ran into the same sort of thing where if you look at the docs and you look at the feature set, you're like, oh, well, okay. They brought over warehouses because there were 5 features they couldn't implement in a lake house. We couldn't get write back. We couldn't get multi-table transactions. We couldn't get some of this stuff. And, for a while, I was saying if they'd let it bake for 5 more years, there wouldn't be 2 separate products. But then you talk to some of the product people and they're like, well, it's got this SQL security that people need, or it has these features. And it's like, well, can we have somewhere that communicates that in a way? I know we're never going to get opinionated Microsoft docs, but the current option is they have like a 3-part or 2-part giant table and then a bunch of paragraph case studies. And it's like, it's good information, but it can be a little bit overwhelming. Right. And I just want like a big bag full of rules of thumb, I feel like. But
well, I think they almost need to get the Fabric Notes people. I don't know if you've ever seen the Fabric Notes where it's almost like infographics of features. So they have one where it's like Lakehouse versus Warehouse, and it's just like a one page picture. That's it. It's very simplified. They almost need to take a lot of the docs and produce like a 1-page infographic going, if this and that. And we saw it with like SSMS versus Azure Data Studio, which will now be SSMS versus Visual Studio Code. But
yeah,
it was like this full list of features, and this one has this one has this. And of course, we can't do that with Fabric, it'd be too broad. But if we can have some summary level, maybe like a 80/20, what customers are using, hopefully they've got telemetry on that to go, okay, if you're doing these, here's some key decision point switches. And they have that to an extent, but it's kind of like key decision points for which storage thing to pick, key decision points for which ETL to pick. But yeah, if we can get it a bit more high level and just say, look, this is a decision tree based on what we've seen, like take almost like a survey response. And no, take it with a grain of salt. But if you have no clue where to start and you don't have the time to read all the docs, here's a little infographic to get you an idea. And then you can make an initial choice and do a deep dive on that and go, yeah, this was the right choice for us, or no, this is the wrong choice for us.
yeah, I think Nicola Illich has done some of those flowchart kind of things, but I'd love to see some more depth. So let's go ahead and wrap up. Just a couple quick questions for you. So first, what is your favorite Fabric feature?
Of all things that I have fun with at the moment, changing the workspace icon.
Okay. Sure.
It's the simplest thing, but I go to designer. I type in some crazy prompt. Like I think today's prompt was give me like a
Funny.
random cartoon, that cartoon character that kind of looks like Flash Gordon and is red and, does this. And that was my real-time intelligence workspace icon.
Yeah.
So I kind of have fun with that.
Nice. What is your least favorite fabric feature?
Ooh, least favorite. I think the fact that, well, at the moment it's that I broke it on my phone, but
You broke all fabric?
yeah, weirdly, if I go to Edge on my phone, on my Android phone, because I have a fold phone, so I can do fabric things on my fold phone really, really, really well. But for some reason, the on Edge, it just basically goes straight to Henry the Owl. I'm not going to display. So I have to go to in private browsers, and it's fine. But I think my least favorite feature is is not necessarily one feature, but just the sheer amount of preview features. Trying to figure out what's preview and what's not is
Yeah.
just like ay. Like
Well, it's yeah. And then there's a toggle for every single one, but then it goes away. It's yeah. All right. Do you have anything you want to promote? And where can we find you? There's way too many social media networks. Some are getting banned and unbanned and all this stuff. So
you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on like X, formerly Twitter. That's one of the main ones to get me on. If they ever send me a LinkedIn request, always send a message. Otherwise, I have no idea who you are, and I probably won't accept it just because I'm a bit precious with my LinkedIn. But you can go to HeidiHastings.com, and that is me. It's not necessarily updated, but you can contact me via that. Happy for people to reach out to me, ask questions. I think promotion wise, I am like super excited lately that I got to do the Fabric Tech Talk Fridays and talk about from clicks to commits. And I love that they use like the marketing phrase of bringing my signature energy. I'm like, heck yeah. But, if you're in Australia, you can see me probably in Brisbane next month at a Brisbane Data and AI bootcamp. If you're overseas in Europe, you can see me at FabCon Europe. I am going to fly from Australia to Europe for that. If you're in the US, past summer in Seattle, come see me there. I know it's the same week as Ignite, but come on, Data Pros, we're gonna be at Seattle. Microsoft's 40 minutes away in Redmond, so we'll be there. But I think those are the things to find me on, and definitely reach out to me if you want to learn about community, fabric, exam search. You just want to, like talk shop. I love talking about tech, all things Microsoft. So feel free to send me a message and say, hey, can you jump on a Teams call sometime? And yes, I'm in Australia. It doesn't mean I can't get up at like whatever hour of the day. It's currently midnight here, from the future, as I like to say.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Oh my God. I guess the last thing about that, it always weirds me out when someone from Australia and New Zealand wishes me a happy birthday because it'll be the day before for me. And I'm like, what? It's the 22nd. What's So
Yeah, the time zone thing is hilarious. And then in Australia alone, like I crack up when I'm on meetings with people interstate because for the rest of the world, Australia has like 4 to 5 time zones at least. So I'm half an hour different to like Brisbane and the Gold Coast and Sydney and Melbourne. And then some don't do daylight savings and some do. So I have people go, hey, we've got a meeting at 11. And I'm like, hang on a minute. Let me just convert. You're in Brisbane. Okay, your meeting's at 11. That means my meeting's at 10:30. Okay, cool. And the same with overseas. Like I love US PDT because I'm getting pretty good at figuring out when that is. But then people send me EST and I'm like, crap. When is that? Can I do that meeting? I'm not sure. And sometimes I just wait for it to go in my calendar because then it will tell me the conversion. But I literally run a time zone conversion app. For those of you working in multiple time zone, invest in the time zone converters. It's genius.
I'll see if I can find a link in the show notes. Australia has the most insane time zone map of any country. It's bonkers,
It's
utterly bonkers. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a pleasure, Heidi. Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for having me anytime. And always great to see you as always.